Welcome back to our special edition of Insight, longer version this week. But, sir, you know, you like cricket, and this is where we're chasing the scores now. This is where we're going to have to keep the scorer busy. None of your offsprings got into politics. You kept it so private from them as well that, we don't hear any Patterson out there.
It's not surprising. My two children had both parents who were immersed in politics. In fact, the separation between their mother and I came about entirely because of her commitment to the people of Guyana and my commitment to the people of Jamaica. So it's not surprising, therefore, that the last thing any of my two children would want to do is to engage in the political mainstream. It's very difficult to convey to people the strains, the sacrifices which are imposed on people who enter political life. Some will say, you weren't forced into it. You weren't held up at gunpoint. You offered yourself, and therefore you must take all the consequences. However, politicians are human beings also. There is a very recent clip of the president of Zimbabwe, the new president of Zimbabwe, being interviewed. And he has the moniker, the crocodile. And the interviewer asked him, "Are you the crocodile?" To which his response was, "I'm human." We are human
as well, not all crocodiles.
We have our feelings. We're subject to periods of joy and sorrow like any other human being. We're not above the law. We shouldn't be. We're not above being exposed to criticism, and where there are acts of corruption which betray the public trust, not only should we be exposed, but we should be held liable for the consequences of it. But to be fed on a constant diet of diatribe, of personal attack, you have to have the ability sometimes to just turn off.
Yes. I'm going to run through this section, sir, because the scorer told me the sunlight is leaving and I don't want bad light to catch me. I use the cricketing thing because you use it so often. You're going to give the long arm and knock that for six. So you do that all the time. You have a current situation where Petrojam is in where it is, and how do we get out of it? 'Cause it's been a long time coming.
in all of these things, we not only have laws, but we have rules and systems. When we ignore them, we pay the price. In the 70s, most of the entities were statutory boards with clear provisions in law. Today, the preponderance of the state-owned entities are not governed by specific statutes, but really fall within the ambit of company law and corporate practices. But there are rules which exist, and when they are not followed, we see the consequences at Petrojam, namely accountability. One of the things which provided a very salutary link of accountability in the past was the presence of the permanent secretary or a senior person in the ministry being a member of that particular corporate board, so that the administrative arm within each ministry would have some invigilatory capacity relating to the boards. How do they meet? What's discussed there? What are things which ought to be brought to the notice of the chief accounting officer, and also, if necessary, directly to the minister who has the responsibility for policy. In the Westminster system, the practice of ministerial responsibility means that if you know and you don't act in accordance with what you know, you are liable. But also, if you don't know what is happening because the linkages are not in place to cause you to know, then you also are accountable in accordance with the idea of ministerial responsibility. I noticed that the current Minister of the Public Service, Finance and the Public Service, is about to issue new guidelines. I would say this simply: those may be necessary in accordance with some of the experience as it has unfolded, particularly with the advent of technology. For example, boards meeting don't necessarily mean that everybody has to assemble in one meeting room. So if you have corporate members of a board in different places, it's possible to organize a meeting of the board by teleconference. I wish the minister, I wish any government success in trying to ensure that the rules, the regulations, and the systems are in place. But the important thing is when they are in place, they must be enforced and implemented. And there must be consequences when there's a failure to do so.
Is the issue of states of emergency overused? Have we reaching the Constitution in wanting them to go on and on, even if situation changes?
Simply put, a state of emergency means what the word denotes. I'm not going to become engaged in any discussion whether or not the present state of emergencies ought to be
Extended.
allowed to continue or extinguished. I'd simply say this. States of emergency cannot be of enduring continuation. And if that is perpetuated, there is a very real danger. Not only that infringements of basic constitutional provisions will occur, but also that those who are engaged in the exercise are no longer as effective as they were when the emergency was first declared.
I have a couple of things to put to you. Emancipation Day, Emancipation Park, Highway 2000, values and attitudes. That's how I see PJ Patterson.
I'm pretty happy that those things stand out. I realized in writing the book that the call for values and attitudes was in my very first presentation when I took the oath of office. I believe to this day, 12 years after my retirement, that the national acceptance for us as a people to establish appropriate values and attitudes, to be guided and obey them, will make all the difference to the kind of people we are, and must form the basis on which Jamaica becomes a place of choice to live and do business,
Great.
and to create prosperity and a better way of life for all our people.
Emancipation Day, Emancipation Park. I remember the Dust Bowl. The importance of Emancipation Day, Emancipation Park.
As a people, we must have some focal point which relates to our history, our heritage, and our future. I think as descendants of those who suffered the greatest atrocities in human history, we ought not only to be reminded, but to celebrate those who led the resistance, and also to free and emancipate the enslavers.
Emancipation, Patterson. That dust ball. Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You would have seen it all your life.
We need to have more places like that where we can meet, where we can gather, where we can pass, where we can observe, and which help to bring together people from different strata of our society, where we meet as one, regardless of color, race, gender, or political affiliation.
Highway 2000. And Mr. Thomas. I remember the original drawings when it was just a thought, and then it came to that, and then I saw the digging.
Yeah.
And now drive on PJ Patterson Highway.
Yes, well, in the new framework of governance, it is recognized that the state has certain lead responsibilities. One of them is to provide the infrastructure for development. We had our railway in Jamaica before the United States did. It was to open the country. Highway 2000 was the start of the highway network to open our country for economic growth and sustainable development.
The Reger Girls are going to France, sir. It must have brought back memories to you.
It certainly did. I didn't expect that their victory was going to be celebrated in precisely the same way. I'm very happy for them, and I hope the whole nation will get behind and beside them on the road to France.
At the launch, the PJ was termed as a pride of Jamaica, almost a Lion King feel I got.
I spoke earlier on about the pursuit of purpose, and it's a journey. It's not a one-step exercise. But I have often spoken of it as a relay. It never ends. What you do is pass the baton. And in 2006, I concluded it was time to pass the baton, and every now and then somebody meets me to express surprise how I appear and look. And they ask me for the recipe, and I give a very simple answer. No longer do I have the problems of 3 million people on my shoulder. And I've been blessed with good health and even in the closing stages of my life, I am very honored and feel it a great privilege to have been given the opportunity to serve my people at the highest level of leadership. And for that, I give thanks.
And we from Insight would like to thank you for your leadership, sir. And more importantly, the fact you put it in a place. And no other persons are calling for a second volume. But this will make interesting reading, I have no doubt, for those who are interested in Jamaica. Again, we want to thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And that will be all from Insight, a very special edition. And until next time, pleasant viewing.